description, our logo, image, the Jumbotron heading, text, and button link. Okay, so everything here in this Jumbotron block is controlled from within settings. So what I want to do now is just install CodeIgniter, and after we install it, in the next video we'll start with the HTML template, with these bootstrap templates. And both of these actually come from a sample template from Get Bootstrap. Obviously there's quite a few editing that we need to do to the template, but that should be no problem. Alright, so let's go ahead and download CodeIgniter. Okay, we've done this before. Let's open that up, and I'm going to go to my htdocs and rename CoolCMS to CoolCMS done. Okay, and then we'll create a new folder to work in. Alright, and basically we want to take all of the CodeIgniter files except for the user guide and license, and bring that over. Okay. Actually, we can just go to this here. Alright, so we have CodeIgniter installed, and we'll do a little bit of configuration. First, let's enable SCF URLs. So the default is the welcome controller. Alright, so we want to be able to just go to our controller instead of having to say index.php/welcome. Alright, so we need our htaccess file. So if I go to CoolCMS, we need our .htaccess file here. So I'm actually going to steal it from the Gaming Place project, which was CodeIgniter. So just copy that and bring that over here. And if you need to see that again, okay, so if you need to see that, this is it. Basically, it's just going to make it so we have to go through index.php. You can add any exceptions here, folders and files. It's basically just a default .htaccess that many developers use with CodeIgniter. Alright, the next thing we want to do is go to Application, Config, and I think Routes. Alright, I'm just going to leave this actually. Our default controller will be articles, but I'm just going to leave welcome for now, because we're going to be building the HTML, the user interface, before we actually start real development in CodeIgniter. Let's see, config. Is it just the config file? Alright, yeah, so config/config.php. This index page right here, you just want to remove this index.php. And let's see, base URL. I'm going to put localhost/CoolCMS/. Okay, so that's our base URL. I don't think there's much else we need to do here. Encryption key. Okay, we should have that. So just put in anything you want here, really. Session variables, that's fine. Cookies, fine. Alright, so let's save that. And now we should be able to go to just /welcome without the index.php. Alright, good. So we might as well connect to our database while we're at it, which we haven't created yet. We'll probably do that after the UI. Alright, so go to database, config database, and username, password, the name of the database, which I'm just going to make cool. And that should be good. Let's save that. Alright, so now let's go to our autoloader. And there's quite a bit we're going to autoload. Let's start with our libraries. Of course, we have the database. And we want to use the session library and also form validation. Okay, next we have our helpers that we want to use. We're going to use the form helper. We're going to use the HTML helper, the URL helper, and the text helper. Alright, let's see what else we got. Models. I like to load all my models in the autoloader. So we're going to have a user model. We're going to have an article model. Settings model. And we're going to have an authenticate model. Now, in the past, when we would have logins and registrations, we do that from the user model. But this is going to be a little different because users are going to be looked at differently in this project because it's a CMS and we're actually adding users, editing them. We're kind of treating them as, I guess, like a resource. So I wanted to separate that from actual authentication to get into the back end. Of course, that's not mandatory. You can still do, you can mix the registrations with actually adding and editing users, but it's just my preference. I just would rather create a model that's just for authentication. And that looks good, so that should be alright. Let's save that. Let's just make sure this still works, which it doesn't. Okay, so I didn't create the database cool yet, because we're going to be doing that in another chapter, but I guess we can just create it. We won't create the tables yet, just so we don't get an error. Okay, we also need to create our models in order to load them, so I guess we can do that. We might as well create the whole structure, except for views. We'll do that later. So let's create user model. Actually, this should be lowercase. Okay, we have a user model. We're going to have article model. And let's see, what else? Settings. Settings and authenticate. Okay. Class authenticate model extends CI underscore model. Just copy this. Article and user. All right. Okay, so now we have no errors. I'm going to stop it there, and then in the next video we'll go into creating the user interface, and then we'll go back to CodeIgniter and actually create the views and do all that.